I think if you were to ask any fan of Ninjago what the biggest hype point of Season 3 was before it released, it was definitely going to be the Forbidden Five. And I do think that's for good reason. The Forbidden Five were hyped up to be this big bad enemy. They're the new big threat to Ninjago. They're the ones that are going to show the ninja how it's done. They're going to give them the run for their money. But the thing is, they didn't do that, because, well, I think it's quite safe to say that a lot of Ninjago fans are quite disappointed with how the Forbidden Five were handled over the course of Dragon's Rising Season 3 Part 1, and me included definitely thought we were going to get a lot more from them. But we simply didn't, and honestly it is just a massive shame to see, because like I said, the Forbidden Five were going to be doing so much more, and well, they just simply didn't, and a lot of people honestly expected to not have them go the way that they did. So I just kind of want to talk about them, and I didn't really want to, but at the same time, it's one of those ones where, since the release, I've just been nothing but disappointed. But let's actually take a look at the Forbidden Five before we actually get to see them in Season 3. Because, like I said, Season 2 did a lot to hype us up to who the Forbidden Five actually were. And we had a couple of interesting tidbits, mainly the fact that they do originate from the wildness. And of course, after discovering Thunderfang's powers, they actually used it to essentially corrupt and destroy the realm of the wildness. And of course, I think by proxy, they did something towards Raz, and I think Raz had them involved in their plan for payback. But it's one of those things where the Forbidden Five were described as realm killers. They were this massive force that were hyped up to be the exact opposite. They were the counter of the ninja. They were the ones that were going to truly show the ninja how it was really done. But the thing is that they got hyped up, they were shown to be really scary, Lloyd had nightmares about them, but the fact of the matter is that they got resurrected and they were taken away, and then we get to see them in Season 3. But that's the thing, they were really heavily involved in the build-up of Season 3 as well. They were again shown in the trailers to be this massive force. And I think everyone, including myself, took that as they're going to be the center stage, they're going to be the ones that really do it, they're going to be all those amazing things that we're hoping for. And the trailer definitely amplified that. But yeah, this is where the season actually started. And they just don't really do that. So the 5 members, we have Noct, Rox, Zarkt, Drix, and Kerr. Of course, all of them having their own unique elemental power, all of them having their own unique ability, quote-unquote having a unique personality, but we don't really get to see much of it. I mean, the one I'm going to start off with, I guess though, I'll go from the most happy I was with them to the least happy I was with them, because simply that's the best way of putting it. I think the Forbidden Five member that honestly didn't get screwed the most was probably Noct, and that's not because of his involvement in Season 3. The thing is that Noct at least got Season 2 Part 2 in the tournament, and of course we get to see him do a lot of different things, we get to see him all use the different elements, he gets a lot of screen time, a lot of development, we get to see a lot of interesting things about Noct. And the thing is that it's honestly really interesting to see. It showed that the Forbidden Five could have been really interesting characters if given the chance, and Noct was given that chance. Because like I said, in Season 2 Part 2, he was intimidated, he was fierce, he was competitive. Once he got all the elements, he truly did not hold back. There were so many scenes where the implication of he was going to kill the ninja was definitely there. Mainly being Nia in the scene where she gets Kai back. But it's one of those things where Noct truly did not care. Noct was going to do what he was setting out to do, and he did not worry about who was in his way in the process. This is where I may be wrong, so this is going to be where I may get a comment about me being incorrect. I don't remember Noct actually using his elemental power in the tournament. I don't remember actually seeing it, to the point where I forgot he was an elemental master. He's the elemental master of brute force. But the thing is that he doesn't really use it. I guess subtly he uses it, but it's one of those things where we don't get an outright scene where they're going, oh god, that's brute force. It's weird. It's not a tangible element, which I guess it can't really be one, but at the same time you would hope it would be one. But that's the thing, that's all in the context of Season 2 Part 2. In Season 3, I mean, a lot of people were hoping that we were going to see maybe Noct fight up against Zane. There was going to be a lot more of a personal aspect to it. But the thing is that he stands around, he has the fight with Zane, he technically wins, but he also doesn't. He kind of just escapes. He gets the sword by chance, and then he just leaves. But then apart from that, he just has his moments. He has this whole little one-on-one with Raz. He goes against the Forbidden Five in that scene, technically. So he has his moments, but it's one of those ones where, even though he has those little tidbits, it's all just by season 2, part 2. I don't know. He just doesn't really do much in this season. And I think that's a shame. But he's still the best of the bunch. I would say the one I was the second happiest with was, weirdly enough, it was probably Drix. And that's because he actually did get his moments. He get to do his own thing. He actually had his time to shine. And I think, honestly, he was probably the favorite of the bunch. Because the thing about Drix is the fact that he was the elemental master of bugs, like bug life. He was made of bugs. And it led to some cool scenes. The scene where Kai shot fire and there's a massive hole in him and it doesn't really matter. That was really cool. And he actually did display an interesting amount of strength. Of course, securing 2 prismatic blades. And he has his moments. He doesn't really do much apart from that. He has his couple fight scenes, but when he's actually with the 5, he kind of just stands back. But it's one of those ones where they actually decided to give Drix his moments. He actually was able to do something. And he also does have a pretty cool design, I will give him that. But the thing is that he has those moments, and that's about it. But he's still a decent one, because those 2 are the only 2 of the Forbidden 5 I actually like. They're the only 2 that's actually done anything. And, well, I'm okay with the next one, but honestly, apart from that, it's just a bit nah. Because the third one, and the middle zone for me, I guess, because this one's kind of just inoffensive, it's probably Kerr. Because it's one of those ones where she has her interesting moments. I ripped on her design when it first came out, I will say that. But honestly, the design has kind of grown on me. But the thing is that she barely does anything. She doesn't really have much in the way of a fight scene. She doesn't really have much in the way of interesting things. So why do I actually like her? And that's honestly because she actually does do something that has some sort of impact on the actual story, I guess. She takes Wildfire out of the scene for a bit, because of course she uses her power of decay on Roby. And it's one of those things where that's actually an interesting little thing to do. I was actually quite interested by that scene. It was really cool then to see Wildfire actually be able to help him. But it was one of those ones where Kerr actually did at least have some sort of lasting effect. But that's actually kind of easy when compared to the rest. And honestly, the elemental power of decay is just kind of a cool concept in of itself. It was used in an interesting way. She uses it twice? Once at the start and then once on Roby. But it's one of those ones where apart from that, we just don't really get to see it apart from that. And it's one of those ones where I'd be curious to see the implications of using that power. What if she used that power on someone like Thunderfang, you know? It's one of those ones where there's a lot of implications of her ability that I hope we get to see explored more. But will we? I don't know. But honestly, Kurt, she kind of just does it better than the other 2. And I'm going to get into the other 2 now, because Kerr's kind of the one that's just kind of there to me. In my opinion, it goes, there are 2 decent ones, there's one I don't really care for, and then there's 2 bad ones. So let's talk about the bad ones. The 4th one, and like I said, this is not the worst one of the bunch, but still pretty bad, it's Rox. And that's the thing, it's just because she's just kind of an idiot. So, of course, we do get Rox in Season 2, Part 2, because her soul is in Jordana's body. But the thing is, we don't really get to see much of Rox because she has to pretend she's Jordana. And, of course, we get to see she's more aggressive. She's cool in the finale. But other than that, she just doesn't really get to actually do much. It's one of those ones where she's kind of just there. I don't really consider Rox a character in Season 2, Part 2. But it's one of those ones where Season 3 is the one where we really get to it. And she has the elemental power of fear. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't really recall an instance of her actually using that elemental power. It's one of those ones where she just doesn't really use it. The most we kind of get of her power, I guess, is the scene where she has the eyes glowing in the very start or just in the trailer. I mean, the shot's on screen now, but it's one of those ones where that's kind of the closest we really got to her power because she doesn't really use it outside of it. But other than that, she just feels a bit like an incompetent leader. It's one of those ones where she just kind of just does silly things. She's just constantly making excuses. She doesn't really hold her own in a fight. I said this in my review. She has possibly one of the stupidest scenes I've ever seen in Ninjago. The scene where she's in Ninjago and she outright says, "I wish the ninja were here so we could stop them." In front of a Jin. What are you doing? What do you mean? You're wishing in front of a Jin? What are you doing? I genuinely can't get over the incompetence of Rox, especially in that episode. And the fact that she just thinks that Thunderfang's just going to give over power. I don't know where she got this trust in Thunderfang. I would like to have seen that at least explored. But it's one of those ones where she's incompetent. She doesn't win a fight. She doesn't really win any sort of instance she gets into. She just feels stupid. She has no control over the Forbidden Five, but then she also feels like she does. Noct is a better leader of the Forbidden Five. I thought Rox was not the leader. I thought it was Noct. What do you mean? I'm crashing out again. I'm done. I'm done. What is this? Ninjago's cancelled. I can't do this anymore. What do you mean? I can't do this. But yeah, Rox is just Rox. She needs more time. She really needs more time. She's got a cool design, but that's it. What else has she got? I genuinely don't know what else she has. She doesn't do anything else. That's Rox. But don't worry, the crash out is not done yet. Because we still have Zarkt. And I genuinely think this is potentially one of the biggest wastes of a character we've ever seen in the show. Zarkt is one of those characters that I think a lot of people latched onto when they were first revealed, because he's one of the more unique ones. He's got the chains around him, he's in green, he's got that weird looking washing basket over his head. It's one of those ones where a lot of people definitely latched onto him, and in the actual trailer itself, he had a very interesting little scene where he disabled a truck. But that goes into my first issue. He's the elemental master of misfortune, and he shot basically a lightning ball? I don't know what it actually did to the truck, because of course the whole thing is he invokes bad luck, he invokes the misfortune, he invokes all those bad things that you don't really want to happen. But it displays as lightning, and it disabled a truck. So my only thing is, did they get so unlucky their tires popped? I don't know. But his power is weird. It could have been such an interesting power. It could be used in so many interesting ways. I'm not claiming to be a writer. I think the writers of Ninjago are absolutely fantastic. But the thing is that it's one of those ones where I feel like they could have done so much more with this power, but we just don't really get it. But here's the problem. Zarkt is by far, and but none, the most incompetent member of the Forbidden Five, and I don't think it's even remotely a competition, because whilst we get to see Rox kind of just ruin her chances, kind of just do really silly things, Zarkt literally doesn't have a single instance where something he wants to happen actually go his way. The main scene that Zarkt really gets is when he's going after the Lloyd team to be able to get one of the prismatic blades, and he just kind of fails at any sort of instance. He doesn't put up any sort of fight. Every single member of the Forbidden Five at least has one somewhat instance of victory, but the thing is that Zarkt literally does not get one. He fails to get the prismatic blade, he retreats from it, and then he kind of just doesn't really have a reason to. It's one of those ones where I don't even think he uses his power. But it's one of those ones where he's set up as this big bad, he's got a cool voice, but that's about it. But it's one of those ones where he just doesn't really do anything else apart from it. And of course Rox then finds out he failed to get the blade, and she threatens to make it the Forbidden Four, which is probably valid at this point, because I don't know what else he's doing. But it's one of those ones where he just kind of just has his moments where he just only gets to fail. Even in the scenes where he's with the Forbidden Five, he just doesn't even stand out. I'm thinking of the episodes where we get to see him with the Forbidden Five. Like the final episode, for example, where all the five are facing off against the ninja for the last blade. But I don't even remember him in that scene. I don't even remember what he was doing. It's one of those ones where Zarkt literally does nothing. He does nothing. He doesn't serve anything towards the plot. Every single character in the Forbidden Five at least does something. Drix gets 2 prismatic blades. Noct freed them and also does get another prismatic blade. Rox at least fixes a prismatic blade. That's 4 blades. Zarkt doesn't even get the 5th. Oh my god. I don't what's going on? I genuinely think Zarkt is a character that could be so fantastic, and if somehow the writers of the show is watching this, do something with Zarkt. Give him his soul back. Get rid of the other 5. Just give him his soul back, because he needs to actually do something that makes him kind of worth our time. And especially considering, obviously, people want the Forbidden Five minifigures. Personally speaking, as someone who wants every single Ninjago minifigure that's ever existed, I cannot justify the price of Zarkt. I don't care for him. I've got my Noct, I've got my Drix, and I can't wait to get the other ones. But I just can't, I can't justify buying Zarkt because of how useless he was in the season. But I think I'm going to call it there in terms of talking about the Forbidden Five so far, ? Because it's one of those ones where I've talked about them all individually, I've had my crash out, And I'm just kind of waiting to see, hopefully they come back and they get to do more. But unfortunately, I'm genuinely worried that they won't. But the thing is, as a team, they just need to be able to do more. Because as it stands, they were hyped up to be something incredible. And they've done nothing to really demonstrate that they are what they claim to be. But let me know what you do think of the Forbidden Five. Do you agree with my crash out? Do you agree with me talking about them how I have? Do you like the Forbidden Five? Do you like them at an overall? Do you think they have issues? I'd like to know your opinions. I will say, just as a quick note, overall, I like Noct, I like Drix. Kerr is fine. And Rox needs to get some competence, and Zark just needs a character. But overall, I do hope we get to see more of them. I hope I get to make a follow-up to this video one day where I get to say that they're fine now and they're amazing. But as of now, they've done nothing but disappoint me. But that is about it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Take care. Okay,